In 1981, while charting the deep sky, astronomers stumbled onto a silence. Their maps, usually dotted with galaxies, opened into a vast dark wound, a region with almost nothing in it, no bright spirals, no crowded clusters, just an enormous absence. They had found a Bode's void, often written Bode's void, an expanse nearly 300 million light-years wide that looked like a cosmic bubble blown into the fabric of the universe. The discovery didn't fit the comforting picture of a sky filled with light. It whispered a stranger truth. Most of the universe isn't stars, it's emptiness. Since then, the Bode's void has become a riddle and a landmark, proof that the cosmos is not a uniform sprinkle of galaxies, but a vast architecture of structure and silence. What could carve out a hollow so large that light itself takes hundreds of millions of years to cross it? What story is written in a place where even gravity's chorus falls quiet? This is a journey into that silence. We'll drift from the bright threads of the cosmic web into its cavernous rooms, where matter is scarce and time feels different. We'll see how tiny ripples after the Big Bang grew into walls of galaxies, and just as importantly, into the spaces between them. We'll follow the tools that revealed the void spectra, redshift and patient surveys, and the ideas that explain it, gravity's slow craft, dark matter's hidden scaffold, and dark energy's steady push. The Bode's void is not a flaw, it's part of the design. To understand the universe's brightness, you must understand its shadows. So settle in. We're going where the stars thin out, where the map fades, and where the silence starts to speak. Most people picture the universe as endlessly glittering, a cathedral of stars, nebulae, and whirling galaxies. But zoom out far enough and the bright parts look like lace, not fabric. Between the glowing threads lie vast rooms of near-nothing cosmic voids. These aren't small gaps between stars. They're regions so large that you could line up thousands of Milky Ways across them and still have space to spare. The Bode's void is one of the most dramatic examples. Inside such a cavern, you might find only a handful of faint galaxies, each separated from the next by tens of millions of light-years. Light itself becomes rare. Imagine trying to illuminate a city with a single candle. That is what starlight feels like in a deep void. Yet, even empty doesn't mean absolute nothing. A few lone atoms drift here and there, the ancient afterglow of the Big Bang, the cosmic microwave background, bathes everything at a temperature just a few degrees above absolute zero. And dark matter, the invisible mass that gives structure to the cosmos, is present too, though thinner than elsewhere. On Earth, our best vacuum chambers are crowded compared with intergalactic space. Even average intergalactic space is crowded compared with the heart of a giant void. These hollows aren't mistakes, they're consequences. From the universe's earliest moments, slight differences in density, some patches a touch heavier, others a touch lighter, were amplified by gravity and by the expansion of space. Dense regions grew denser, drawing in more matter and lighting up with galaxies. Underdense regions were drained and stretched, becoming the dark rooms of the cosmic web. The voids are the negative space that makes the pattern visible, and within that negative space, the Bode's void stands like a cathedral nave, quiet, cavernous, and humbling. To see how voids form, rewind to a universe that was almost smooth, almost matters. Tiny ripples in density, imprinted by quantum fluctuations and blown up by early cosmic inflation, marked where matter would slowly gather or recede. Gravity did the rest, with patient inevitability. Where there was slightly more matter, gravity pulled harder, deepening wells that drew in gas. Stars and dark matter, filaments, emerged, long, delicate strands of galaxies strung like beads. At their intersections, clusters swelled into crowded cities of light. Where there was slightly less matter, the opposite happened. Those patches couldn't hold on. Matter leaked away toward their denser neighbors, and the ongoing expansion of space stretched them further. Regions that started a little empty became very empty. Over billions of years, the cosmos took on a sponge-like texture, filaments and walls surrounding swollen bubbles of underdensity. The Buddha's void is one of those bubbles writ on a colossal scale. Picture a foam of soap bubbles, each bubble a region where galaxies are scarce and gravity's grip is weaker. Along the bubble walls, galaxies collect inside. Only the occasional wanderer drifts alone. The rare galaxies that live in deep voids evolve differently. They aren't jostled by neighbors, stripped by hot gas, or frequently merged. They keep their fuel longer, form stars more gently, and age in quiet. The voids themselves are dynamic. As dense regions siphon matter, voids expand and paradoxically become emptier still. They're not holes cut out of the universe, they are the universe's natural lowlands. The Buddha's void, then, isn't an error to be corrected, it's a feature to be understood. It tells us that structure and emptiness are partners. The bright threads need the dark rooms, and in those rooms, the universe whispers its deepest stories. The Buddha's void moved from rumor to reality in the early 1980s. A team led by Robert Kirshner, along with Augustus Emler Jr., Paul Schechter, and Stephen Schechtman, was mapping galaxies in 3 dimensions using redshift survey. The method was meticulous. Point a telescope, collect a galaxy's light, split it into a spectrum, measure how much those spectral lines are shifted toward red, and convert that shift into distance. Plot thousands of such points, and the flat sky gains depth. What they saw wasn't a random sprinkle. It was structure, arcs, walls, and filaments. And then a breathtaking gap. In the direction of the constellation Buddhas, their maps showed a spherical region hundreds of millions of light-years across, with shockingly few galaxies inside. Instruments weren't broken. Dust wasn't hiding anything. The emptiness was real. By 1987, the team's work had crystallized the case. A void roughly 250 million light-years in diameter, bounded by richer structures. The discovery helped shift cosmology's mental model. The universe wasn't a smooth soup of galaxies. It was a cosmic web. Redshift surveys became the language for reading that web, and voids, once invisible, became essential characters. Later, bigger surveys confirmed the picture and refined the numbers. The Buddha's void still towered among the largest known hollows, remarkable both for its size and its stark contrast with surrounding walls. Occasional lonely galaxies were found inside, islands on a black sea. Their isolation made them valuable to study, like laboratories free of the usual galactic traffic. The Buddha's void's shock wasn't merely its emptiness. It was the implication our cosmos has an underlying architecture, and to understand it, we must chart the dark spaces as carefully as the bright ones. Scale is the heart of the Buddha's void's awe. Start with the Milky Way, about 100,000 light-years across, home to hundreds of billions of stars and a supermassive black hole at its center. Line up 25 Fevern Milky Ways end to end, and you just span a 250 million light-year void. Imagine our entire galaxy dropped into that emptiness. It would be a grain of sand in a stadium. The local group, the small family that includes the Milky Way, Andromeda Triangulum, and dozens of dwarf galaxies, stretches roughly 10 million light-years across. You could fit 24 local groups in a single diameter of the void. Consider the Virgo cluster, a relatively nearby cluster about 10 million light-years wide and packed with thousands of galaxies, you could line up tens to hundreds of Virgos and still not fill the void's breadth. Move up another rung to superclusters, vast, loosely bound constructions of clusters and groups linked by filaments. Our home region, Laniakea, spans on the order of 500 million light-years. The Buddha's void is about half that diameter, meaning it rivals the scale of some of the most imposing structures we know. Remember, too, that the void isn't a flat circle, it's a three-dimensional volume. The number that matters most is cubic. By volume, a giant void can swallow billions of hypothetical Milky Way-sized spheres. Yet inside, the count of real galaxies is tiny, dozens where thousands might be expected if the universe were uniform. When we talk about light taking hundreds of millions of years to cross, we're also talking about time. Peer into a void and you see ancient light by necessity. It's a corridor through space and through history, an emptiness so large it bends our sense of scale until words feel small. Where is the Buddha's void? Not next door, but not at the universe's edge either. Begin with our cosmic address. Earth, orbiting a middling star in the Milky Way. The Milky Way sits in the local group, which drifts toward the Virgo cluster, and all of this is part of the Laniakea supercluster, our continent on the cosmic map. Now look outward in the direction of the constellation Bootes. The Herds constellations are sky patterns, not true neighborhoods, but they give us a pointer. Along that sightline, at distances of hundreds to roughly 700 million light-years from Earth, the galaxy counts plummet. That is where the Bootes void opens, a largely spherical underdensity whose shorelines are defined by brighter structures. Nearby in cosmic terms lie massive features like the Hercules supercluster and the Corona Borealis supercluster. Think of them as mountain ranges at a basin's rim. Over eons, gravity pulls matter toward those ranges, and the basin drains. The void thus grows, not as a bubble blown by force from within, but as a lowland emptied by flows toward the highland. As the universe expands, space itself stretches, and the already underdense regions expand more rapidly. The void's edges are not hard walls. Density increases gradually from sparse interior to the thicker filaments and walls where galaxies cluster. If you could fly a straight path, your instruments would see the faintest smudges begin to appear, then multiply, then knit into chains. The center of the void is distant enough that the light we see from its edge began traveling when complex life on Earth was only beginning to stir in the seas. The Buddha's void is far, but on the grand map, it's part of the same web we inhabit, just one of its quietest rooms. Gravity is a soft-spoken sculptor. Compared with the other forces of nature, it's weak, yet over cosmic distances and time scales it shapes everything. After the Big Bang, gravity worked on tiny imbalances, gathering matter into growing wells. Invisible dark matter, about 85% of all matter, was crucial. Dark matter doesn't emit or absorb light, but its gravity creates the scaffolding on which galaxies form. Where dark matter was denser, it drew more in, and ordinary gas cooled and condensed into stars. Where dark matter was thinner, gravity's hand was lighter. Those areas lost material to their heavier neighbors and became today's voids. In places like the Buddha's void, even dark matter is underdense. That's why the region is so quiet. There aren't deep wells to gather and stir the content. The few galaxies that do exist inside are laboratories of solitude. Without frequent interactions and mergers, they evolve at a gentler pace. Many retain gas longer, forming stars more steadily over time rather than in bursts triggered by collision. Their shapes tend to be more pristine, fragile disks, irregulars, or faint dwarfs that haven't been tidally shredded by massive neighbors. This doesn't mean nothing happens there. Internal processes, supernova feedback, slow gas accretion, small satellite mergers, still write histories, but the loud external forces of crowded environments are mostly absent. On larger scales, matter flows along filaments into clusters, deepening the contrast. Rich get richer, poor get poorer. That's the essence of gravitational instability. The Buddha's void is a snapshot of that long arithmetic, a place that started with less, lost more as the web grew around it, and now stands as an underlit hall between the universe's bright boulevards. If gravity is the gatherer, dark energy is the unraveler. In the late 1990s, observations of distant supernovae revealed that the expansion of the universe is accelerating. Something dubbed dark energy seems to be pushing space apart. Unlike matter, dark energy doesn't clump. It spreads smoothly, exerting the same effect in dense clusters and empty voids, but its influence is most visible where gravity is weakest, inside voids. There, with little mass to resist, space stretches more freely. The result, voids expand faster than the cosmic average. Their interiors thin further, their boundaries inflate outward, and isolated galaxies drift even farther apart. This makes voids exquisite laboratories for testing cosmology. Measure their sizes, shapes, and growth over time, and you can probe the nature of dark energy, whether it behaves like Einstein's cosmological constant or something more exotic that varies with time. Watch how galaxies move near void edges, and you can map the tug-of-war between gravity and the cosmic push. Project far into the future, and the picture grows lonelier. Galaxies not bound together by local gravity will recede beyond each other's horizons. The great filaments will thin, the cosmic web will fray. What remains are island universes, clusters bound by their own gravity, adrift in oceans of darkness. In that endgame, the Buddha's void is a preview, a vast quiet that's coming to dominate the large-scale stage. None of this diminishes the beauty of what's bright. How do you measure a whole? Not by what's inside, but by what's missing. Astronomers map voids using redshift surveys, vast campaigns that record positions and distances of millions of galaxies. Telescopes collect a galaxy's light and feed it into spectrographs that spread it into rainbows marked with barcode-like lines. Those lines shift toward red if the galaxy is receding with the expanding universe. Redshift is the ruler that gives the universe depth. Its cousin to the Doppler effect you hear in a passing siren. Waves stretch when a source moves away. With light, there are two related causes of redshift. One is motion through space, Doppler. The other, dominant on cosmological scales, is the stretching of space itself. As the universe expands, light waves traveling within it are stretched to longer, redder wavelength. Spectrographs make this measurable. Elements imprint unique fingerprints, hydrogen, oxygen, calcium, on a galaxy's spectrum. Compare where those lines should be in the lab to where you observe them in a distant galaxy, and the offset gives Z, the redshift. Higher Z means more stretching, more distance, and further back in time. Edwin Hubble's great insight was that distance and recession speed scale together. More distant galaxies are receding faster on average. Plotting redshift against distance for many galaxies reveals that linear trend. Hubble's law. With millions of such measurements, astronomers convert the two-dimensional sky into a three-dimensional map. In wedge plots, walls and filaments appear as arcs and streaks. Voids appear as yawning gaps. There are nuances. Galaxies also have peculiar velocities, local motions caused by nearby gravitational pulls, which can slightly blur positions along the line of sight. In dense clusters, these random motions elongate structures into fingers of God in redshift space. But averaged over large scales, the expansion dominates and the map remains reliable. That reliability is what made the Buddha's void's discovery so striking. It wasn't an illusion from dust or instrument noise. It was a coherent volume with dramatically fewer galaxies than expected. The few galaxies found inside the Buddha's void are peculiar precisely because of their isolation. In crowded regions, galaxies collide, merge, and interact constantly. Their shapes are sculpted by tidal forces, their gas stripped by hot intergalactic media, their stars often born in violent bursts, triggered by encounters. Void galaxies live another life, untouched by frequent neighbors. They evolve slowly, like trees growing undisturbed in a quiet forest. Observations suggest they tend to be bluer, meaning they are still forming stars from reservoirs of gas. Their morphologies are often disk-like or irregular rather than massive ellipticals. Without larger companions to stir them, they preserve their structure. This makes them cosmic laboratories, showing us what galaxies might look like if left mostly alone. They also raise questions. How did they end up so deep in the void? Perhaps they drifted inward as the void expanded, or perhaps they formed in small dark matter halos that never gathered enough material to shine brightly, leaving only a faint trace in surveys. Each void galaxy is a clue, a survivor in a land where almost nothing else thrived. Studying them requires long exposures on the largest telescopes, pulling photons from objects billions of times fainter than what the naked eye can see. Yet the reward is perspective. Galaxies like ours are not the only way to exist. In the silence of the Buddha's void, evolution writes different stories. They remind us that even in vast emptiness, life in the form of stars and gas still flickers. The lesson is both humbling and inspiring. Emptiness doesn't mean absence of all things. It means rarity, fragility, and endurance. A single faint spiral in the middle of a void is as precious as a diamond in an endless desert. When we talk about voids, it's tempting to imagine them as static holes. But they are dynamic, expanding, stretching, and changing with time. Gravity pulls matter toward denser regions, draining the void. Meanwhile, the accelerating expansion of the universe allows those under dense regions to swell even faster. The Buddha's void we see today wasn't always so large. Billions of years ago, its contrast with the average universe was smaller. Matter was more evenly distributed over cosmic history. The dense grew denser, the empty grew emptier. In a sense, the void is alive, breathing with the universe's expansion. Simulations show this vividly. Voids aren't just empty circles. They are complex, irregular regions that grow and even merge, like soap bubbles coalescing into larger bubbles. The Buddha's void may have formed from the joining of several smaller voids, which explains its remarkable size. This process will continue. In the far future, as dark energy dominates, voids will expand faster still, isolating galaxies into gravitational islands. Our descendants, if any remain, may live in a universe where the cosmic web itself has thinned beyond recognition, leaving only a handful of local structures surrounded by oceanic emptiness. The Buddha's void is a snapshot of that destiny, a window into the universe's tendency toward separation. To us, it seems extraordinary. To the universe, it is ordinary evolution. Emptiness grows as surely as stars burn, and just as stars have lifespans, so too do structures fade, leaving behind the quiet architecture of space itself. The Buddha's void shows us the direction of time, not only in bright supernovae or galaxy collisions, but in the silence between them. It is the future, already present. Astronomers sometimes describe voids as the most natural laboratories for testing cosmology. Why? Because they are simpler, dense regions, clusters, and filaments are messy, filled with non-linear interactions, violent mergers, complex gas physics, and active black holes. Voids, by contrast, are dominated by the smooth expansion of space itself. Their low density means fewer complications. This makes them ideal for probing the fundamental parameters of the universe. For instance, the way galaxies are distributed around void edges tells us about the strength of gravity. If gravity were weaker or stronger, the patterns of evacuation would differ. Likewise, the rate at which voids expand is sensitive to dark energy. The emptier the region, the more clearly its growth reflects the underlying cosmological model. Observations of voids have already placed constraints on modified theories of gravity and alternatives to dark energy. Beyond cosmology, voids are also canvases for subtle effect. The integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, for example, describes how cosmic microwave background photons gain or lose energy as they pass through evolving gravitational wells or hills. A giant void like Bertus can leave faint but measurable fingerprints on the microwave background. Studying these helps us test whether our understanding of cosmic expansion is correct. Thus, the Bertus void is not just a curiosity, it's a working tool, a natural experiment provided by the universe. It reminds us that absence is as informative as present, just as a sculptor's art lies as much in the carved-out spaces as in the remaining stone. Cosmology's insights often come from what is missing. The Bertus void is one of the largest carved spaces, a silence that helps reveal the underlying design. Culturally, voids like Bertus strike a chord deeper than data. To hear of a region hundreds of millions of light-years wide with nearly nothing in it is to confront the scale of nothingness directly. It challenges intuition. Most of us live surrounded by fullness, cities, forests, oceans, clouds, stars. Even a desert feels full of sand, wind, and sky. But the Bertus void is emptiness on a scale that dwarfs imagination. It is not just a desert, it is a desert that could swallow billions of Earths without noticing. Philosophers have long wrestled with the idea of nothing. Can nothing exist? Is emptiness a real state, or simply the absence of things? The Bertus void makes the question literal. Here is a space that is profoundly less filled than average, where even light from galaxies is rare. For some, this sparks awe. The universe is vast and layered, and we occupy one thin filament of it. For others, it sparks dread. If so much is empty, how fragile must our place be? Science does not dictate which response to feel. It only presents the reality, yet the emotional resonance cannot be ignored. The Bertus void is like staring into a cosmic abyss. Some see beauty in its silence. Some feel small in its shadow. Either way, it is a reminder that the universe is not arranged for our comfort. It is what it is, mostly empty, occasionally brilliant, endlessly humbling. To measure the Bertus void's meaning, compare it to the total. The observable universe is about 93 billion light-years in diameter. Within it are perhaps 2 trillion galaxies, each with billions of stars. Yet, on large scales, the universe is more empty than full. Voids like Bertus dominate the volume. Galaxies, clusters, and filaments make up only a minority of space. This means that the true cosmic average is closer to emptiness than to fullness. Our intuition, shaped by a starry night sky, is biased. We see the bright because it catches our eyes, but we do not notice the dark volumes between. The Bertus void forces correction. It is a sample of the real norm, not the exception. Statistically, most of the universe is void-like. We live in an unusual pocket dense enough to allow stars, planets, and life. Perhaps this is inevitable. Observers can only exist where matter gathered, but it also reframes perspective. Instead of asking why the void is so empty, one might ask why the filaments are so full. The answer lies in the delicate balance of physical laws, gravity, quantum fluctuations, expansion, working over eons. The universe is not a uniform soup, it is a patterned fabric of contrast, and emptiness is the baseline from which structure emerges. The Buddha's void is remarkable not because it is unique, but because it is extreme. It dramatizes what is true everywhere, that silence is the dominant note and brightness the accent. There's another way to think of voids, not as places where nothing happened, but as places where something else happened. In dense regions, the story is about collisions, superclusters, and blazing starbursts. In voids, the story is about absence, expansion, and gentle isolation. Imagine being a civilization in a galaxy deep inside the Buddha's void. Your night sky would be strikingly different. Where we see the Milky Way in a vault of stars, they would see fewer companions. The universe would appear lonelier, less cluttered. Their cosmology might evolve differently. Without nearby clusters to observe, they might underestimate the richness of the wider universe. Their maps would be biased by their emptiness, just as ours are biased by our fullness. This thought experiment reminds us that perspective is local. What we take as universal truths are shaped by our cosmic environment. Our place on a filament near many galaxies gives us one view. A place in a void would give another. Both are real, yet partial. The Buddha's void is thus not only a physical region, but also a mirror for our biases. It shows how easy it is to mistake local scenery for cosmic truth. In studying the void, we correct for that bias. We see that the universe is more varied than any one vantage point allows. Emptiness is not an anomaly. It is part of the whole, and by imagining life inside a void, we grasp just how provincial our own view might be. This story of voids also connects to the ultimate fate of the universe. If expansion continues to accelerate under dark energy, voids will dominate more and more. Galaxies not bound together will drift apart beyond each other's horizons. Clusters will become isolated islands. Eventually, even nearby galaxies will slip away from view. The night sky will empty. Future astronomers may see only their local cluster and mistake the rest of the cosmos for void. In that sense, the Buddha's void is a preview of the universe to come. It is what most regions will resemble billions or trillions of years from now, vast silences with scattered, lonely galaxies. The physics of today already points toward that outcome. While stars will keep burning for trillions of years and black holes for even longer, the overall picture is separation. The cosmic web will thin until its pattern fades. For us, standing at the relatively young age of the universe, voids, like Buddha's, are time machines. They let us glimpse a stage of cosmic evolution that will one day be universal. The silence of the void is not just absence, it is prophecy. It tells us where things are going. In that sense, the Buddha's void is not just a puzzle of the past, but a signpost to the future. Emptiness grows, light shrinks, and in the end, the universe becomes a canvas more like the void than like the bright filaments we now celebrate. Voids may be empty of galaxies, but they are not empty of questions. One enduring puzzle is how voids might host dark matter. Standard cosmology says dark matter is everywhere, even in voids just at lower density. But measuring it directly is difficult. Gravitational lensing, where mass bends light from background objects, is one of the few tools. By examining the subtle distortions of galaxies behind voids, astronomers can estimate how much dark matter lies within. Early studies suggest voids are indeed underdense in dark matter, consistent with theory. Yet there are hints of complexity. Voids may be emptier than models predict or structured differently. This opens the door to new physics, perhaps interactions between dark matter particles or deviations from general relativity. Thus, voids are not just silent chambers, but testing grounds for the foundations of cosmology. Another question: how do galaxies inside voids form at all? With so little surrounding matter, how did they gather enough to ignite stars? Are they relics of small density peaks that never grew large? Or have they migrated inward from denser edges? Each possibility offers insight into galaxy formation in extreme environments. The Buddha's void, being so large, magnifies these puzzles. Its very existence pushes models of structure formation to their limits. Is it a rare outlier, a statistical accident in the cosmic dice roll, or evidence of processes we don't yet fully grasp? To study the void is to confront these questions directly, using silence as data. Sometimes the most profound mysteries hide not in the crowded places, but in the emptiest ones. Even language strains when we speak of voids. Words like nothing, emptiness, and silence carry philosophical weight. They suggest absence. But in physics, absence is nuanced. The Buddha's void is not absolute nothing. It has space, it has time, it has a whisper of atoms, photons, and dark matter. Quantum mechanics teaches us that even a perfect vacuum seethes with virtual particles popping in and out of existence. So when we call it empty, we mean empty of galaxies, empty of structure, empty of the luminous things that catch our eye. The deeper truth is that emptiness is relative. Compared with a cluster, the void is barren. Compared with true nothing, it is rich. This tension makes voids such powerful metaphors. Philosophers wrestle with the concept of nothingness because it underpins being itself. Scientists wrestle with it because it underpins cosmic structure. Both meet in the Buddha's void, a region that embodies emptiness yet contains enough subtlety to challenge our definitions. To meditate on the void is to walk the line between science and philosophy, data and meaning. It is a reminder that our categories are shaped by human needs, but the universe is under no obligation to conform. The Buddha's void exists, immense and silent, whether we call it nothing or something. In its depths, the boundary between emptiness and fullness blurs. And in that blur lies both scientific insight and existential reflection. The void is what happens when the universe writes with negative space, and we are left to interpret the script. When Edwin Hubble first showed that the universe was expanding, he likely could not have imagined the immense hollows that would later be discovered. At that time, galaxies were only beginning to be recognized as island universes, and the idea that they clumped and scattered into vast webs was unthinkable. The Buddha's void was revealed much later, in the 1980s, when astronomers began systematic surveys of the sky. Maps of redshifted galaxies slowly built a three-dimensional picture. Amid the clusters and walls of galaxies, a huge blank patch appeared, so blank that astronomers at first thought it must be an error. Yet repeated surveys confirmed it a spherical cavern 330 million light-years across, holding almost nothing. To discover such a void was unsettling. It forced cosmologists to rethink whether their models could naturally produce such large gaps. Over time, simulations showed that yes, extreme voids could form by merging of smaller voids, but they remain rare. The Buddha's void thus became famous not only for its size, but for its timing. Discovered just as our view of the universe's large-scale structure was taking shape. In that sense, it was like finding a missing piece of a puzzle while the puzzle was still being assembled. Its emptiness drew attention not because voids are unusual, but because this one was vast enough to make the pattern undeniable. For the first time, people could see not only galaxies but the spaces between them, carved into the fabric of the cosmos like negative images on a cosmic film strip. The Buddha's void was emptiness turned visible. The sheer dimensions of the Buddha's void invite comparison. Imagine lining up the Milky Way galaxy end to end, each about 100,000 light-years across. You could fit more than 3,000 Milky Ways inside the void's diameter. If our galaxy were placed at its center, the nearest substantial neighbors would be hundreds of millions of light-years away. For perspective, our own local group of galaxies is about 10 million light-years across and already feels like a grand stage of interaction. By contrast, the void is an ocean with only scattered islands too far apart to meaningfully shape each other. This comparison underscores just how isolated any galaxy within such a region would be. Isolation on that scale has consequences. Cosmic evolution is accelerated in dense regions, but slowed in emptier ones. Thus, the void can act like a time capsule, preserving conditions more similar to the early universe. Its galaxies remain simpler, less disturbed. In that sense, the Buddha's void is both extreme and informative. It is a counterweight to the drama of galaxy clusters, showing us that the universe also writes chapters of quiet endurance, where change moves at a different tempo. The void's enormity also humbles the imagination. It is one thing to hear that the universe is big. It is another to contemplate a single structure so large it could engulf thousands of galaxies like ours, and still seem barren. This is the dimension of nothingness, so vast it becomes a kind of presence in itself, a monument to absence. Philosophers have long used the concept of the void as a metaphor. In ancient Greece, thinkers like Democritus imagined atoms moving in a void, with emptiness as the stage for all existence. Aristotle resisted the idea, declaring that nature abhors a vacuum. In later centuries, the vacuum became a battleground for physics and metaphysics alike. With the discovery of space, the void took on literal dimensions. Yet only in the 20th century did we grasp its scale. The Buddha's void is not an abstraction, but a region we can map, measure, and peer into with telescopes. This collision of metaphor and measurement is striking. What once symbolized philosophical absence now appears on charts of galaxies as a blank circle. For thinkers, this adds new layers to the age-old question, what is nothing? If a void can be mapped, then nothing becomes something with coordinates, extent, and content. If emptiness contains dark matter, faint galaxies, and the structure of expansion, is it still nothing? Or is nothing always a relative term, defined only by contrast? The Buddha's void thus acts as a bridge between human imagination and physical reality. It shows that our metaphors sometimes foreshadow discoveries, but reality always complicates them. To speak of the void is to walk the boundary between poetry and cosmology. Its silence is not empty of meaning, it is saturated with it. The void is both the most literal and the most symbolic phenomenon we can point to, reminding us that absence and presence are two sides of the same coin. Standing beneath a starry sky, it feels full, even crowded. Yet if your eyes could see the Buddha's void, you would notice its absence instead. To the naked eye, it would not look blacker than the rest of the sky. Stars in our own galaxy fill every direction, but behind them, in the deeper backdrop of galaxies, there would be a thinning. With the aid of a telescope, the difference becomes real. Where other regions of space show galaxies sprinkled like glitter, The Botez void shows only a sparse scattering. This contrast gives the void its character. It is not an absolute emptiness, but a relative thinning, visible only through careful mapping. In that way, it is like silence in music. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the pause between notes, shaping rhythm and contrast. The Botez void is a pause in the cosmic symphony. To look at it is to notice what is not there, and in noticing, to feel its weight. This has a curious effect on the mind. The more we learn about the void, the more it resembles a mirror for our sense of scale. We recognize how conditioned we are to see fullness as normal and emptiness as exceptional, when in truth, the universe is the opposite. Stars are rare, galaxies are rare. Voids dominate, the sky is a biased canvas, showing us brightness but hiding the true expanse of silence. Astronomers sometimes call the Botez void the great nothing. The phrase captures both its immensity and its strangeness. But it also misleads, for the void is not truly nothing. It is structured by gravity, filled with dark energy, and home to rare galaxies. To call it nothing is to project our human discomfort with absence. Yet the name endures because it captures the feeling the void evokes. Greatness here is not greatness of abundance, but of lack. Nothingness here is not pure absence, but radical thinning. Together, they form a paradox, a vast something that feels like nothing. This paradox resonates with human experience. We all know moments of emptiness, silences, gaps, losses that feel larger than the full moments. The Botez void is the cosmic scale of that sensation. It is not an error in the universe, but a natural outcome. And yet it feels like a flaw, a missing note in the melody. Naming it the great nothing reflects our tendency to see fullness as the norm. But by accepting it as the great something, a structure of emptiness, we learn to read the universe differently. We begin to see absence not as a void to be feared, but as a feature to be understood. The Botez void in this sense is not failure but expression. The universe speaks in silences as much as in signals. It tells its story in the vast gaps, as surely as in the shining galaxies, and in the great nothing, it whispers one of its deepest truths. Imagine a future where humanity travels far enough to map the cosmos in person. Spaceships glide through filaments, stopping at clusters where galaxies blaze like cities. Eventually they approach the Botez void. As they cross its edge, the view thins. Stars of our galaxy still shine around them, but the distant backdrop of galaxies fades away. Days, then years pass, with little change. The void stretches on. The crew begins to feel the isolation, a weight of distance more psychological than physical. Here the universe offers little spectacle, only silence. To live in such an environment would demand a new relationship with emptiness. No landmarks, no steady sense of progress, only the abstract knowledge that space continues, but without company. This thought experiment highlights the human response to voids. They are not dangerous in themselves. There is nothing to collide with, nothing to threaten, and yet their very absence becomes oppressive. The Botez void is not hostile, but it challenges meaning. It forces travelers to bring their own stories, for none are written in the stars. This is why voids unsettle us. They strip away narrative. They remind us that the universe is not obliged to be interesting everywhere. It is vast, beyond drama. For scientists, this makes voids valuable. For poets, it makes them haunting. For future explorers, it will make them tests of endurance, not of body, but of spirit. There is also beauty in the void's geometry. Cosmologists often visualize the large-scale universe by plotting galaxy surveys in slices, like cutting through a fruit to see its inside. These wedge diagrams show galaxies as points scattered across distance and direction. In them, the Buddhist void appears as a clear circle of absence, a hole amid the cloud of points. Its clarity makes it iconic. Where most of the universe is mottled with clusters and gaps, this region is strikingly clear. For students first encountering these maps, the Buddhist void is often the feature that lodges in memory, the vast hole, the strange absence. Its geometry is not accidental. It reflects the gravitational flows that sculpted it, the draining of matter toward filaments and nodes. In this sense, the void is a fingerprint of cosmic evolution. Its shape tells a story of expansion and attraction, of matter gathering elsewhere. To see it drawn on a chart is to realize that emptiness has form. The Buddhist void is not just nothing, it is patterned nothing, and in its pattern lies the physics of the universe itself. Beauty here is not in brightness, but in contour. The whole is elegant precisely because it is stark, defined not by what is there, but by what is not. When scientists presented the Buddha's void to the public, reactions varied. Some were fascinated by its scale, eager to imagine the implications. Others were unsettled, asking why such a thing should exist. A few even wove it into speculative fiction, imagining civilizations hidden in its depths or secrets encoded in its silence. This cultural afterlife shows how science and imagination intertwine. A discovery in astrophysics becomes a canvas for myth. The void, empty in itself, becomes filled with human meaning. Stories painted as a hiding place for advanced beings, a scar of cosmic catastrophe, or a portal to something beyond. None of these are supported by data, but their persistence shows our need to populate emptiness with narrative. Perhaps it is uncomfortable to leave it blank. Perhaps it is natural to treat absence as invitation. The Buddha's void is not only a scientific fact, but also a symbol. It symbolizes mystery, vastness, and the limits of our comprehension. Even stripped of fiction, it carries weight as an image, the largest known whole in the universe, the silence in the cosmic song. That image alone is enough to inspire both awe and ease. Science explains how it came to be. Culture explains why it lingers in the mind. To place the Buddhist void in context, consider the scales of emptiness closer to home. Between stars in our galaxy lie light years of near vacuum. Between atoms in our bodies lies more space than substance. Emptiness is not rare. It is fundamental. The void magnifies this truth to galactic scale. What we call matter is already sparse. What we call empty is even sparser. In both cases, stirs rage on a sea of absence. The Buddhist void dramatizes this, showing us how the universe itself is built more from gaps than from solids. This challenges our instincts. We like to think of being as primary, nothingness as secondary, but physics suggests the opposite. Nothingness is the canvas, being the paint. Without emptiness, there is no place for matter to exist, no room for galaxies to spread. The void is not an anomaly, but the rule. To understand it is to invert perspective. Fullness is the exception, emptiness the baseline. This is a reversal as profound as Copernicus moving Earth from the center of the cosmos. It is another dethronement of human assumptions. The Buddhist void is not a hole in an otherwise full universe. It is fullness that is the hole in an otherwise empty universe. And this inversion, once accepted, makes the cosmos feel different, less like a theater built for us, more like a silence in which we are briefly singing, Looking ahead, the study of voids is still young. Surveys grow deeper, mapping millions of galaxies across billions of light years. New instruments like the Vera Rubin Observatory will trace the cosmic web with unprecedented detail. With each map, voids like Bhutas will be charted more clearly, their boundaries refined, their dynamics measured. Computer simulations will model their growth, testing ideas about dark matter, dark energy, and gravity. In parallel, philosophers and artists will continue to mine their symbolism, turning the great nothing into stories, metaphors, and questions. Thus, the Bhutas void stands at a crossroads, a scientific object, a cultural image, a philosophical provocation. It is all three at once. To study it is to learn not only about physics, but about perspective. For in the end, the void teaches humility. It reminds us that most of existence is not what we notice. It shows us that silence is not the absence of song, but part of it, and it invites us, as observers, to accept that our presence is rare against a backdrop of absence. To gaze into the Bhutas void is to see the universe as it is, vast, indifferent, empty, and yet, in its emptiness, profoundly full of meaning. In ancient traditions, the idea of a void often carried spiritual weight. In Buddhism, for instance, shunyata, or emptiness, is not nihilism, but recognition of interdependence. The fact that nothing exists alone. Reading the Bhutas void through that lens, one might see its emptiness not as lack, but as connection. The very absence of galaxies highlights the structure that surrounds it. The filaments gain meaning because the void defines them. Similarly, Taoist philosophy speaks of the usefulness of emptiness. A cup holds liquid not because of the clay that shapes it, but because of the space within. The Bhutas void is like that cup, its vast cavity giving shape to the cosmic web. Science and philosophy meet here, not in opposition, but in resonance. The universe builds itself not just from matter, but from absence, and both are necessary for form. The void embodies that balance, silently affirming that what is missing is as fundamental as what is present. It is cosmic shunyata, written across hundreds of millions of light years, a teaching etched into the universe itself. The Bhutas void also tests imagination. Human minds evolved for scales of meters and seconds, not millions of light years or billions of years. To stretch into such dimensions requires metaphor. We speak of oceans, deserts, bubbles, and lace because they echo what we know, yet none quite capture the immensity. To really feel the void is to admit its incomprehensibility. It resists the grasp of language. But in that resistance, it teaches us humility. It forces us to confront the mismatch between human cognition and cosmic reality. Some respond with awe, others with indifference. But the lesson is the same. The universe is not scaled for us. The Bhutas void, by its sheer enormity, crystallizes this truth. It humbles the imagination, reminding us that metaphors are scaffolding, not substitutes. We may never fully picture it, but in trying, we stretch beyond ourselves. That act of reaching, of thinking in scales not meant for us, is part of the gift. The void makes philosophers out of astronomers and poets out of listeners. One intriguing aspect of voids is their potential role in cosmic expansion. If dark energy accelerates the stretching of space, voids should be particularly sensitive. They grow faster than average, swelling as galaxies drain from them. By measuring void sizes across different epochs, astronomers can test models of dark energy. The Bhutas void, because of its enormity, plays a role in such studies. It acts like a natural amplifier. Small differences in expansion become exaggerated in its vast hollow. Thus, emptiness becomes a measuring stick. Instead of counting galaxies in clusters, scientists trace the shapes of absence. It is a counterintuitive method, but powerful. Just as shadows reveal as much as light, voids reveal as much as clusters, in a universe where dark energy dominates, this may be our best tool for understanding its nature. The Buste's void, then, is not just a curiosity, it is an instrument, a cosmic yardstick made of silence. From another perspective, the Buddhist void can be seen as a story of movement. Galaxies flow along gravitational gradients, drawn toward denser regions. Over billions of years, the void is drained, not because matter disappears, but because it migrates. This flow sculpts the cosmic web, pulling threads tight while leaving gaps behind. The void is the negative image of attraction, the imprint of matter's departure. To watch simulations of this process is to witness a cosmic tide, with galaxies drifting like ships toward invisible harbors, leaving behind an ocean of silence. The Buddhist void is the calm left in the wake of those migrations. It is less an empty place than a place emptied, a hollow carved by motion. Thinking of it this way makes the void dynamic, less a flaw in the fabric and more a trace of cosmic dance. Emptiness becomes a record of where fullness has gone. What would it feel like to stand in a galaxy inside the Buddha's void? The stars of your own system would look the same. The Milky Way's pattern across the sky would be replaced by your own galaxy's disk. But the broader night sky, the tapestry of faint galaxies, would be altered, where we see thousands. You might see only a few dozen. The sky would feel thinner, lonelier. Your cosmology, built on observation, would differ profoundly. You might conclude that the universe is sparse, that galaxies are rare without access to edges of the void. You would not know that richness lies beyond. This thought experiment reveals how context shapes knowledge. Our picture of the universe is colored by our filament-rich vantage point. The Buddha's void reminds us that another perspective exists where emptiness dominates perception. To imagine life within it is to glimpse how fragile and contingent our own understanding is. Voids also inspire speculation about hidden physics. Could they harbor exotic phenomena invisible to us? Some theories suggest dark energy might not be uniform but could vary subtly across space. Voids, being sensitive to expansion, might betray such variations. Others wonder whether voids could be shaped by unknown interactions of dark matter, creating cavities deeper than standard models predict. The Buddha's void, being so extreme, fuels these speculations. It is a natural place to test the boundaries of known physics. While most results so far affirm the standard model, the very act of probing voids keeps science open. Emptiness becomes a frontier. In the history of discovery, what was once thought empty often revealed hidden structure, air, vacuums, quantum fields. The Buddha's void may follow that pattern, not empty, but host to subtle secrets waiting for better instruments to uncover. For artists and storytellers, the void is a canvas. Some imagine it as a cosmic cathedral, a place of stillness where thought expands unbounded. Others see it as a graveyard, the silent residue of a universe always moving away from itself. In science fiction, the Buddha's void is often imagined as a hiding place, a cloak for civilizations advanced enough to withdraw from the cosmic web. Though unsupported by evidence, such tales capture a truth about human psychology. Emptiness begs for meaning. We populate the void not because data demands it, but because imagination abhors blankness. In this way, the Buddha's void transcends astronomy. It becomes part of cultural myth-making, an abyss where science and story intertwine. Its emptiness is fertile, birthing narratives as easily as galaxies birth stars. Consider how fragile structure really is. A galaxy forms only where enough matter gathers, cools, and collapses. Conditions must align: density, temperature, time. Voids are reminders of how often those conditions fail. They are monuments to paths not taken, to universes that could have been but never were. The Buddhist void is like a negative history, a record of all the galaxies that might have formed but did not. In this sense, it is both absence and testimony. It testifies that structure is not inevitable. It is contingent, delicate, dependent on fluctuations born in the first instance of the cosmos. The void is a cosmic reminder that what exists is the exception, not the rule. By staring into it, we learn to appreciate our filament, our star, our planet, as rare outcomes in a universe where emptiness dominates. Even time itself feels different when contemplating the void. In clusters, time is marked by collisions, bursts of star formation, flashes of supernovae. In voids, time stretches quietly. Galaxies evolve slowly, almost lazily, without external disturbances. A billion years in a cluster may bring upheaval. A billion years in a void may bring gentle continuity. The Buddhist void is thus a region where cosmic time runs to a different rhythm. To imagine existence there is to imagine a slower tempo of change, a quieter unfolding. Perhaps life in such a galaxy, if it arose, would feel time differently, shaped by the serenity of its environment. The void, in this way, is not just space, but tempo, not just absence, but pace. It teaches that time, like space, is relative to context. Ultimately, the Buddhist void is a lesson in perspective. It forces us to see the universe not only as a place of stars and galaxies, but as a place of silence and gaps. It shows that structure is not the whole story. Absence is equally fundamental. For science, this means data. For philosophy, it means paradox. For culture, it means metaphor. But for all, it means humility. The void does not revolve around us. It does not notice us. It simply is. And yet, in contemplating it, we find meaning. The Buddhist void is an emptiness that fills the mind, a silence that speaks. Its enormity dwarfs our lives, yet its very existence enriches them. It is the universe reminding us that sometimes what is not there matters as much as what is. The story of the void is also the story of light. In astronomy, light is our only messenger. We cannot travel to distant galaxies. We can only wait for their photons to arrive. In the Buddhist void, fewer galaxies mean fewer photons. The region is dim not because light cannot cross it, but because little light is made there. When astronomers first mapped it, the absence of light was what revealed it. The Buddhist void is thus a negative image etched in starlight, an emptiness drawn by the lack of signals. This makes it poetic. The void is visible only because the universe is otherwise luminous. Darkness in this sense is always relative. We notice the silence only because a chorus surrounds it. The void is the silence between cosmic notes made audible by the music around it. Voids also highlight the balance between chance and necessity. The initial conditions of the universe contained random fluctuations in density. Some regions were slightly denser, destined to collapse into clusters. Others were slightly emptier, destined to grow into voids. Over billions of years, these small differences amplified. The Buddhist void is the result of such amplification. Chance fluctuations stretched to cosmic proportions. Yet within this chance lies necessity. The mathematics of gravity and expansion guarantee that emptiness expands just as density contracts. The void is thus both accident and inevitability. It was not planned, yet it had to happen. This duality, random yet lawful, is one of the mysteries of the cosmos. It tells us that order and disorder are not opposites, but partners. The Buddha's void exists because of both. Some scientists study voids to test alternatives to Einstein's gravity. If space expands differently in emptier regions, voids could betray the fingerprints of modified physics. For example, theories that tweak gravity to explain cosmic acceleration predict subtle distortions in void shapes. By mapping them, astronomers can test whether gravity behaves the same everywhere. The Bunny's void, being so large, is especially sensitive to such effects. If anomalies were found there, they could hint at new laws of nature. So far, general relativity holds, but the search continues. In this way, emptiness becomes a laboratory. The Bunny's void, silent and sparse, is one of the largest experimental arenas we have. Its emptiness is not a lack of content, but a wealth of tests. By staring into nothing, we probe the deepest laws of something. At human scale, emptiness is often seen as frightening. We fear silence, loneliness, and blankness. Yet we also seek them in meditation, in retreat, in sleep. The Buddha's void reflects this duality. It can be terrifying, a gulf of isolation, but it can also be calming, a reminder of stillness beyond measure. Just as silence in music can soothe as well as unsettle, the void can be read as both threat and balm. To meditate on its scale is to let go of human noise, to sink into a cosmic quiet. It is a void large enough to dissolve anxieties, to make our troubles feel fleeting. The Buddha's void is thus both abyss and refuge. Depending on how we frame it, its emptiness is a mirror for the state of mind we bring to it. Even in its vastness, the Buddha's void is not eternal. The expansion of the universe continues. Galaxies on its edges drift farther apart. The few galaxies within it grow more isolated. In time, even their faint light will fade, stretched beyond detectability by cosmic redshift. Billions of years from now, the void will appear even emptier, its contents hidden from any observers who might exist. In that future, the Buddha's void will be closer to true nothingness than it is today. Yet even then, it will not be pure absence. Dark energy will still flow through it. Quantum fields will still fluctuate within it. Nothingness, it seems, is never absolute. The void will remain both present and absent, both filled and empty, a paradox preserved into eternity. Imagine charting the universe like a cartographer once charted seas. On early maps, vast blank regions were marked with phrases like, "Here be dragons." The Buddha's void is our modern equivalent, a blank expanse, but one backed by data, not ignorant. We know it is empty, and yet the emptiness invites speculation. What might dwell there? The difference is that dragons were imagined to fill ignorance, while the void resists such filling. It is not a gap in knowledge, but knowledge of a gap. This inversion is subtle but profound. It shows how far science has come. Where once we populated maps with monsters, we now accept emptiness itself as an object worth naming. The Buddha's void is our cosmic here be nothing, and yet in acknowledging it, we give nothing a kind of presence. Some writers describe the Buddha's void as a scar. It resembles a wound in the cosmic web, a place where galaxies should be but are not. This metaphor, though dramatic, has resonance. Scars are records of injury, but also of healing. The void, too, is a record, not of damage, but of natural evolution. Its size speaks of processes that reshaped matter on unimaginable scales. To call it a scar is to recognize its permanence. It is not temporary absence, but lasting structure. The universe has written its history in both clusters and voids, and the Butu's void is one of its deepest engravings. To contemplate it as a scar is to recognize that even absence can endure, etched into the body of the cosmos like memory into skin. The void also sharpens questions about life. If galaxies within it are isolated, could life there ever flourish? The odds seem lower. Fewer galaxies mean fewer stars, fewer planets, fewer chances. Civilizations would be lonelier, less likely to meet neighbors. The great silence of the void could mirror the silence of interstellar communication. Perhaps this adds another layer to the Fermi paradox. Not only is life rare, but much of the universe is simply too empty to host it. The Butu's void is a stark reminder that most of space may be uninhabitable, not because it is hostile, but because it is vacant. Life thrives at the edges, in filaments where matter gathers. The void is the other possibility, the universe without company. It sharpens the contrast, making our own lively corner more precious. Still, emptiness has lessons. By studying galaxies in the void, astronomers learn what isolation does to them. Without frequent collisions or tidal forces, they evolve gently, undisturbed. Their shapes are simpler, their histories quieter. Comparing them to cluster galaxies reveals how environment shapes destiny. In this way, voids are control groups in the cosmic experiment. The Butu's void provides the cleanest case. Galaxies shaped almost entirely by internal processes, free from external interference. This purity makes them valuable. Just as biologists study isolated ecosystems to understand evolution, cosmologists study void galaxies to trace the intrinsic path of galactic growth. In their solitude, these galaxies reveal what galaxies truly are when left alone. The Butu's void ultimately blurs categories. Is it absence or presence? Is it structure or lack of structure? Is it frightening or peaceful? The answer to all is yes. Its paradox is what makes it compelling. It is emptiness that feels full of meaning, silence that resonates, absence that becomes presence. In this sense, the void is less an anomaly than a teacher. It teaches us that binaries often fail: fullness and emptiness, matter and nothing, signal and silence. These are not opposites, but interdependent. The Butu's void embodies this truth across hundreds of millions of light years. To contemplate it is to learn that the universe is not made of things alone, nor of gaps alone, but of the interplay between them. The void is that interplay made visible, the dance of being and nothing woven into space itself. The Butu's void is not the only void in the universe, but it is the one that caught our imagination first because of its scale. Today, surveys have mapped countless smaller voids, each a hollow carved between filaments. Some are tens of millions of light years across, others hundreds. Together, they form a network of gaps that balance the network of galaxies. The Butu's void is simply the largest member of this family, but size matters in how we react. Small voids feel like features. The Butu's void feels like a presence. It is big enough to command attention, to seem almost intentional. That impression, though false, makes it iconic. It symbolizes voids in general, much as Everest symbolizes mountains. Its fame is less about uniqueness than about extremity. And in extremity, it becomes a lens through which we understand the ordinary. Consider how the void reshapes our sense of distance. In everyday life, a kilometer feels long. On Earth, an ocean feels vast. Between stars, light years stretch imagination, but the Boötes void spans 330 million light years across. To cross it, even at light speed, would take longer than multicellular life has existed on Earth. This scale dwarfs our instincts. It forces a confrontation with deep time and deep space simultaneously. The mind resists, but in resisting, it grows. Each void reminds us that distance is not absolute, but relative to context. What feels far to us is trivial compared to cosmic gulfs. The Boötes void crystallizes this lesson. It teaches that our units of measure are parochial, shaped by survival, not by reality. In contemplating it, we stretch those units, reaching toward a broader understanding of scale itself. The void also embodies the interplay between chaos and structure. The early universe was a soup of particles, hot and nearly uniform, tiny ripples, quantum in origin, seeded differences. Some grew into clusters, others into voids. That duality, fluctuations amplified, means the universe is neither random chaos nor perfect order. It is patterned randomness, a balance of predictability and surprise. The Buddha's void exemplifies this. It looks shocking, but models predict such extremes. It is unlikely yet inevitable. That tension is what makes it beautiful. Beauty often arises from balance, from the edge between order and disorder. The void sits on that edge, reminding us that the universe is not designed for symmetry, but for texture. Its texture is what allows both galaxies and gaps to exist side by side, neither dominant, both essential. Astronomers have cataloged dozens of galaxies within the Buddha's void, though sparse. Some of these galaxies appear unusually blue, rich in young stars. This may be because, in isolation, they have more untouched gas to fuel star formation. Others are oddly shaped, perhaps because without nearby neighbors, they evolve in ways different from standard spirals or ellipticals. These void galaxies are precious data points. They are laboratories of solitude. By studying them, scientists hope to understand how environment alters evolution. Are galaxies in voids delayed, forming stars later because gas is undisturbed, or are they accelerated, using reserves more efficiently? The answers are still unfolding. Each faint smudge of light in the Buddha's void represents not only a galaxy, but a clue. Even in emptiness, stories continue. The void does not silence galaxies, it gives them a stage of their own.
When we map voids, we map silence, but silence itself has structure. Just as sound engineers study the quality of silence in a hall, the way echoes fade, the way absence shapes resonance, cosmologists study the geometry of voids. Are they spherical, elongated, merged? The Boötes void is roughly spherical, but smaller voids show variety, shaped by local dynamics. This variety encodes physics. By analyzing void shapes, scientists learn how matter clumps and stretches. In this way, silence becomes information. The Boötes void is not just an absence, but a data set, its geometry a fingerprint of cosmic history. To read it is to hear the echo of the Big Bang itself, stretched across hundreds of millions of light years. The void is thus a relic, not of destruction, but of origin, a whisper from the universe's first moments, carried forward into the present.
Culturally, the Boötes void resonates because it mirrors existential themes. People often speak of emptiness in personal terms, loneliness, absence, meaninglessness. The cosmic void externalizes that feeling. It is loneliness on a scale beyond comprehension. Absence made visible. Yet this projection is double-edged. To some, it makes the universe feel cold and indifferent. To others, it makes human life feel precious precisely because it is rare. The void is thus a Rorschach test. It reflects the stance we bring, nihilism or reverence, despair or wonder. Neither is inherent, both are interpretations. The Buddha's void itself is indifferent, but in gazing at it, we cannot help but see ourselves. Its silence amplifies our own inner voices, forcing us to ask what emptiness means. In that sense, it is not only a cosmological object, but a psychological mirror. The Buddha's void also challenges language. We call it a void, yet it contains galaxies. We call it empty, yet it teems with dark energy and quantum fields. Words strain to capture its nature. This strain is instructive. It shows the limits of naming. Human language evolved for rivers, trees, and tools, not for expanses 330 million light-years wide. When forced to stretch, words wobble. But wobbling is growth. The void teaches us that language, like thought, must adapt. To speak of it is to test the elasticity of meaning, to expand vocabulary beyond comfort. In that sense, the Buddha's void is not just an astronomical puzzle, but a linguistic one. It stretches not only telescopes, but tongues, demanding new metaphors, new poetics. It is an emptiness that enlarges expression itself. In art, emptiness is often as important as form. Painters leave negative space to balance composition. Architects carve courtyards and halls as much as they build walls. Musicians use rest to give rhythm. The Buddha's void is the universe's negative space. It balances the composition of the cosmic web. Without voids, filaments would not stand out. Without silence, sound would blur. The void, in its enormity, gives the universe contrast. It sharpens galaxies by surrounding them with absence. To see it this way is to see the cosmos as art, not random, not designed, but patterned in ways that evoke aesthetic resonance. The Buddha's void is the blank canvas against which galaxies become strokes of light. It is not absence of art, but condition for art, written not by hands but by physics. Science thrives on anomalies. The Buddha's void, when first discovered, was an anomaly. It seemed too large, too empty, too improbable. But anomalies are invitations. They push models to improve, theories to refine. Over time, the void was absorbed into cosmology, explained by simulations. Yet its role as anomaly remains important. It reminds scientists that discovery is not only about confirming expectations, but about confronting surprises. The void was a shock that became a standard. This pattern repeats in science: today's anomaly, tomorrow's framework. The Buddha's void is a case study in this rhythm. Its discovery did not break cosmology, it strengthened it. Emptiness, once a problem, became a pillar. The void thus teaches not only about space, but about science itself. That surprise is not failure, but growth. As we contemplate the Buddha's void, we approach a paradox. We spend immense effort studying nothing. Telescopes, surveys, simulations, all devoted to mapping absence. Yet this effort reveals that nothing is never truly nothing. Emptiness has structure. Silence has resonance. Absence has consequences. The Buddha's void is not waste, but wealth, a treasury of insights carved from lack. Its very emptiness brims with meaning. This paradox is perhaps its deepest gift. It shows that the universe is not only about what is present, but about what is missing. It reminds us that knowledge grows not only from what we see, but from what we don't. And it whispers that, in the end, nothingness itself may be the richest field of all. The Buddha's void is our lesson in that truth, stretching across space like a cosmic teacher of silence. To stand before the boater's void in thought is to face scale stripped of comfort. We are used to landscapes framed by horizon, seas framed by shore, skies framed by atmosphere. The void offers no such frame. It is unbounded to the imagination, larger than any instinct can anchor. This exposure strips away illusions of familiarity. It confronts us with reality, as it is vast, indifferent, uncontained. Yet within this confrontation lies liberation. Freed from the need for scale to match comfort, the mind can expand. The boat is void becomes a meditation object, a vastness that empties thought of clutter. By gazing into it, not with eyes, but with imagination, one practices letting go. The void does not shrink to fit us. We grow to fit it. In that growth we find a strange peace, the peace of proportion, surrendered. Some astronomers argue that voids may be the cleanest regions of the universe. Far from clusters and superclusters, they are less contaminated by complex interactions. Radiation fields are weaker, gravitational tides less intense. In this sense, the boater's void is not just empty, but pure. It is cosmic wilderness, untouched by the turbulence of crowded regions. Like a desert untrampled by roads, it preserves a more original state. To study it is to glimpse the universe in simpler form, closer to primordial conditions. This purity is valuable scientifically, but it also resonates symbolically. The void is an uncluttered canvas, a reminder that simplicity has its own beauty. In a cosmos of complexity, the boater's void whispers of minimalism. Less is not loss, but clarity. In mythology, voids often appear at the beginning. The Norse Ginnungagap, the Greek chaos, the Egyptian nun, each is a primordial emptiness from which creation arises. The boater's void, though not primordial, echoes these stories. It is a modern Ginnungagap, a yawning gulf in which imagination places origins. Of course, galaxies did not form there in abundance, but symbolically it mirrors myth, creation defined by emptiness. This resonance between ancient tale and modern map shows continuity in human thought. We have always looked to emptiness as both fear and source. The boater's void becomes a bridge between myth and science, linking ancient chaos to modern cosmology. Its emptiness is not only astrophysical, but archetypal, carrying echoes of humanity's oldest attempts to explain the world. The boater's void also carries a lesson about fragility. Galaxies form where conditions permit, but most of the universe is not permissive. The void reminds us that existence is exceptional. To live on a planet in a galaxy within a filament is to occupy a rare niche. The void embodies all the failed possibilities, places where matter did not gather, where stars did not ignite, where worlds did not spin. It is a cosmic cemetery of unrealized potential. Yet this fragility makes existence more precious. By contemplating the void, we glimpse how contingent our lives are. We are not inevitable. We are improbable. The boater's void makes this clear by being the rule while we are the exception. It teaches gratitude disguised as emptiness. Some philosophers argue that the void in physics and in life is generative. In quantum theory, even the vacuum seethes with virtual particles flashing into and out of existence. Emptiness is active, not passive. The boater's void may be similar on a grand scale. Though sparse in galaxies, it may play a role in shaping the cosmic web by its very absence. Its expansion tugs filaments, its hollowness defines edges. Emptiness is not nothing. It is dynamic structure. To reflect on this is to shift perception. Absence is not negation, but function. The Buddha's void demonstrates that voids create as much as they erase. By not being filled, they give shape to what is filled. The paradox deepens. Emptiness is builder as much as destroyer. Imagine civilizations within the Buddha's void. Their night skies would be profoundly different. They might conclude that their galaxy is alone in a mostly barren cosmos. Their myths might not feature crowded heavens, but infinite solitude. Contact with other civilizations would be unlikely, not because of hostility, but because of separation. The void would enforce cosmic isolation. This thought experiment reframes our own position. Surrounded by galaxies, we sometimes lament the silence, but compared to a void civilization, we live in a bustling neighborhood. The Buddha's void sharpens that contrast. It suggests that cosmic loneliness is not uniform. It depends on address. To live in the void is to live in a desert of stars. And that difference could shape entire worldviews. Voids are also used as tests for cosmic isotropy, the idea that the universe looks the same in every direction. If voids were systematically different in one region of space, it could suggest large-scale asymmetries. The Buddha's void, as one of the largest, is part of this check. Its properties align with expectations, reinforcing that the universe is homogeneous on the grandest scales. This may seem abstract, but it matters deeply. It means no place is privileged, no region singled out. The Buddha's void, for all its drama, is ordinary in context. This ordinariness carries a quiet comfort. Even extremes fit into pattern. The universe, vast and strange, still shows coherence. Emptiness, even dramatic emptiness, is part of the whole. Culturally, the void resonates with themes of exile. Writers describe it as a banishment, a place where galaxies have been exiled from one another. The metaphor of exile speaks to human experience, separation, distance, longing. The Buddha's void embodies cosmic exile, galaxies cast apart with no hope of reunion. This metaphor enriches the scientific picture with emotional depth. It allows listeners to feel the void not just as a fact, but as an experience. And in feeling it, they can connect their own lives of longing, of distance, of separation to the rhythms of the cosmos. The void becomes not abstract, but intimate, a mirror of exile written in stars. Its emptiness echoes human themes, making cosmology a kind of shared poetry. Even the naming carries weight. Buddha's void ties the emptiness to a constellation. Buddha's, the herdsman, ancient myth and modern science meet in the title. The void inherits mythic resonance while anchoring itself in observational astronomy. To name is to frame, and the frame matters. Without a name, the void is anonymous, absence. With one, it becomes character, almost persona. The Buddha's void is no longer just coordinates, it is a presence with identity. Naming transforms emptiness into story. It reveals the human tendency to personify, to make vastness approachable by giving it a face. However symbolic, the void becomes not less empty, but more meaningful. Its name carries it from datasheet to imagination. Ultimately, the Buddha's void draws us into paradox after paradox. It is emptiness that fills, silence that speaks, absence that defines presence. It is frightening and calming, anomaly and norm, scar and canvas. This layering of contradictions is what sustains its fascination. If it was simply empty, it would bore. If it was simply anomaly, it would perplex. But it is both, and more. In its contradictions, it becomes inexhaustible. To contemplate it is to practice holding opposites together without resolution. It trains the mind in paradox, in acceptance of both and, rather than either or. The Buddha's void is thus not only a cosmic object, but a philosophical exercise, a meditation on how to live with contradiction. In gazing at it, we learn not about emptiness alone, but about how to hold fullness and emptiness together in thought. The Buddha's void also reminds us of the role of perspective. From Earth, it looks like a great hollow, but if you lived inside it, the emptiness would not be so obvious. Your galaxy would still shine, your stars would still wheel overhead, and you would not see a cosmic hole stretching around you. The void is visible only at scale, only through surveys stitching together millions of points of light. This reveals something profound. Some truths are accessible only collectively. No individual eye can see the void. Only instruments, teams, and synthesis reveal it. The Buddha's void thus symbolizes the necessity of shared vision. It is knowledge born not of solitude, but of cooperation, a truth too large for any one perspective. Astronomers sometimes speak of voids as the negative image of structure. They are not things themselves, but boundaries where things are not. This makes them difficult to conceptualize. We are used to thinking of entities, objects, stars, galaxies. Voids are anti-entities, defined by subtraction. The Buddha's void embodies this inversion at maximum scale. It is something by being almost nothing. It exists as absence given contour. This conceptual inversion stretches thought. It forces us to consider that existence is not only about what is present, but also about what is absent. In this way, the void expands philosophy as much as astronomy. It presses us to consider the being of non-being, the presence of absence, not as wordplay but as reality. In literature, the void often becomes metaphor for the unknown. Writers describe it as an abyss, gulf, yawning emptiness. The Buddha's void fits easily into this tradition. It is the closest thing in astronomy to the archetype of the abyss. Yet, unlike myth, we know its boundaries, we can measure its depth. This makes it a domesticated abyss, a quantified terror. It loses none of its awe in being measured. Instead, measurement deepens awe by revealing scale. Numbers like 330 million light-years sharpen rather than dull its impact. The Buddha's void is thus a union of myth and math, abyss and equation. It is what happens when human imagination meets cosmic survey, fear translated into data, then back into wonder. Some researchers use voids to probe dark energy. Because voids expand faster than dense regions, they amplify the effects of cosmic acceleration. By measuring how voids grow, astronomers test whether dark energy behaves as a cosmological constant or something more exotic. The Buddha's void, enormous and clean, offers an ideal laboratory. Though difficult to study in detail because of its sparseness, it is precisely such sparseness that makes it sensitive. This turns absence into prose. The universe's largest mysteries, dark energy, acceleration, fate, are investigated not in clusters of light, but in wells of emptiness. The Buddha's void, by existing, helps reveal the destiny of the cosmos. It is absence pressed into service of presence, nothing leveraged to explain everything. Contemplating the Buddha's void reshapes our emotional vocabulary. Words like lonely, empty, hollow take on new shades when stretched across such distances. Yet they also reveal limits. Can loneliness describe hundreds of millions of light-years? The human heart was not built for such scales, and yet we try. In doing so, we elevate language. The void pulls our metaphors outward, forcing them to grow. It becomes a forge for expression, a vastness that teaches us to speak differently. The Buddhist void is thus not only an object of astronomy but a catalyst for poetry. Its enormity bleeds into art, sharpening symbols, stretching metaphors until they nearly break, yet hold through it. Emptiness enriches not only science but language itself. Philosophically, the Buddhist void raises questions about nothingness. If the void is not pure nothing, since it contains dark energy, quantum fields, and scattered galaxies, then what is nothing? Perhaps absolute nothing cannot exist. Perhaps every attempt to imagine it collapses into something. The Buddhist void is a case study in this paradox. It is as close to nothing as the universe allows, yet it is still something. This echoes philosophical debates stretching from Parmenides to Heidegger. Can nothing be thought? The void becomes a theater for this question. It is not pure absence, but it forces us to confront the impossibility of pure absence. The Buddhist void suggests that nothingness, in reality, is always dressed in some trace of being. The Buddhist void also redefines silence. In human terms, silence is the absence of sound. But the void silence is deeper, the absence of voices, of signals, of nearby galaxies. It is intergalactic quiet. Radio telescopes pointed there would find only faint whispers, weaker than elsewhere. This cosmic silence is not mere lack, it is presence of stillness. To sit with this image is experience silence differently. It is no longer pause between notes, but erasure of the orchestra itself. Yet paradoxically, that erasure is still something. It hums with background radiation, with faint cosmic microwave glow, with quantum murmur. The Buddhist void thus teaches that silence is never absolute. Even where nothing speaks, the universe whispers. Some thinkers view voids as the truest representation of the universe's fate. As expansion accelerates, galaxies drift apart and isolation deepens. The far future will resemble today's voids, lonely galaxies surrounded by darkness. In this sense, the Buddha's void is a preview of destiny. What is now local extremity will one day be universal norm. The cosmos is evolving toward emptiness. The Buddha's void is simply ahead of schedule. To see it is to see our own future, stretched before us. This adds poignancy to its study. It is not only a curiosity, but a mirror of fate. The void is what the universe is becoming. In its emptiness, we glimpse tomorrow. The human reaction to the void often oscillates between terror and comfort. Terror because emptiness undermines meaning. Comfort because emptiness dissolves burdens. The Buddha's void crystallizes this oscillation. For some, it is existential dread, proof of insignificance. For others, it is relief, proof that our troubles are small in comparison. This duality is not a contradiction, but a richness. It shows that meaning is not given by cosmos, but made by mind. The void supplies canvas, and we paint interpretations. Terror and comfort are both valid, both responses to scale. The Buddha's void is not frightening or soothing by itself. It is potential, shaped by perspective. It reveals less about itself than about us. Ultimately, the Buddha's void stands as a reminder of humility. We did not expect it, we could barely measure it. We can scarcely imagine it, yet it exists indifferent to expectation. Its enormity humbles theory, humbles imagination, humbles pride. It teaches that the universe is under no obligation to be intuitive or kind, yet in that humbling, it offers gift. Wonder, for wonder arises when pride is set aside, when scale exceeds self. The Buddha's void forces wonder. It is too large, too empty, too paradoxical for complacency. In facing it, we relearn awe, a feeling older than science, older than myth. Awe is the true message of the void, a silence that stirs, emptiness that awakens. When astronomers first mapped the Bhuta's void, their instinct was disbelief. A hole this large seemed impossible. Computers flagged it, but people assumed error. Only repeated confirmation turned anomaly into fact. This process illustrates a key truth. Discovery often feels like mistake at first. We are wired to distrust extremes. Yet nature is extreme. The Bhuta's void stands as lesson in patience with surprise. Do not dismiss the improbable too quickly. It may be real. In science and in life, voids appear, gaps that seem absurd, absences that seem wrong. Yet sometimes they are features, not flaws. To accept them is growth. The Bhuta's void is thus more than cosmic gap. It is a parable about error embraced as revelation. Think of the void as architecture. The universe is a cathedral, not of walls, but of spaces between. Filaments are arches, clusters are columns, but voids are the vast halls where silence gathers. Without them, the architecture collapses into clutter. The Buddha's void is a grand hall of this cosmic cathedral, a chamber whose scale overwhelms imagination. To walk it would take longer than history, yet in thought we can traverse it instantly. This cathedral is not built by design, but by gravity and expansion. Still, its form evokes art. The Buddha's void proves that beauty does not require intention. Structure and emptiness alone can conspire to create grandeur. We live in such grandeur unawares, inhabitants of architecture cosmic in scope. Astronomers sometimes describe voids as cosmic bubbles, inflated by the expansion of the universe. In this metaphor, the Buddha's void is a bubble so immense that galaxies float only at its edges. This image captures both fragility and vastness. Bubbles are delicate, yet here the bubble is billions of years old, enduring as universe itself expands. The metaphor also emphasizes connectedness. Voids are not isolated but press against one another, foam-like, defining filaments between them. The Buddha's void is thus one cell in a cosmic foam. Seeing it this way dissolves its isolation. It is not lone emptiness, but part of network. Its hollowness is balanced by others, forming whole. Emptiness, multiplied, becomes structure. The bubble is not nothing, it is pattern. Consider the psychological effect of contemplating voids. They demand surrender. Unlike galaxies which offer detail and progression, voids offer nothing to grasp. The mind, searching, finds no foothold. At first, this frustrates. Then, if accepted, it quiets. The Bhuta's void is thus a tool for meditation, a cosmic koan. It asks, what is it to contemplate absence? In struggling, the mind lets go. In letting go, stillness comes. This mirrors traditions of Zen and Tao, where emptiness is not deficiency, but fullness of potential. The Bhuta's void, encountered with calm, can become teacher of stillness. It invites surrender not as defeat, but as peace, the peace of vastness that needs no filling. Technologically, voids are mapped using galaxy redshift surveys. By measuring how light from galaxies shifts as universe expands, astronomers build 3D maps of distribution. The Bhuta's void emerged from such mapping in the night. Its revelation was not through telescopes alone, but through computation, turning catalogs into structure. This emphasizes how modern astronomy is less about direct vision and more about synthesis. No eye ever sees the Bhuta's void. Only data reveals it. Yet that data constructs an image as vivid as any photograph. It shows that seeing has evolved. We no longer rely solely on eyes, but on systems of measurement. The Buddha's void is thus a triumph of collective vision, where computers extend imagination into scales eyes cannot. The Buddha's void also embodies impermanence. Though immense, it is not eternal. Galaxies drift, voids shift, structures evolve. Over billions of years, matter will redistribute, filaments will stretch, and the void will change shape. In the far future, it may enlarge, its hollowness deepening as galaxies recede, or it may distort as expansion and gravity compete. Its current form is snapshot, not permanence. This impermanence is humbling. Even emptiness changes. Nothing is static. Not even nothing. The Buddha's void teaches that change is universal law, applying not only to stars and planets, but to absence itself. To contemplate it is to see change written on largest possible canvas. Culturally, the void resonates with themes of exile and homecoming. To imagine traveling across it is to imagine exile, centuries of darkness, no milestones, no companionship. Yet in returning to filaments, one imagines homecoming, galaxies reappearing, light clustering, gravity pulling again. The Buddha's void dramatizes both. It makes absence and return more vivid. This mirrors human life, times of distance, times of reunion. The void becomes allegory. Its immensity embodies separation, its edges embody return. In meditating on it, one finds echoes of journey and belonging. The Buddha's void is thus not only a cosmic gap, but a story of departure and home written in stars and silence. The void also challenges anthropocentrism. It is not shaped for us, it does not care for us, it does not even notice us. Yet in studying it, we invest it with meaning. This reveals a dual truth. The universe is indifferent, but humans are meaning makers. The Buddha's void exemplifies this. Its emptiness is neutral, yet we fill it with metaphor, loneliness, exile, beauty, terror. This is not flaw but feature. We cannot help but read ourselves into cosmos. The void is mirror. What we see in it reflects our inner state. Indifference outside, interpretation inside. Together they form encounter. In that encounter, humanity touches cosmos, not by being central, but by being reflective. In science fiction, voids often become settings for mystery zones where rules break, where signals vanish, where ships disappear. The Buddha's void lends itself to such imagination. Its immensity invites story, what might lurk unseen, what hidden civilizations might dwell in its sparse galaxies. While science finds no anomalies beyond emptiness, imagination fills gap. This is not error but creativity. The void feeds narrative. It offers stage for wonder and fear, an expanse into which invention can pour. By existing, the Buddha's void ensures tales will follow. It is not only an object of observation, but of storytelling, a blank page awaiting ink of imagination. Ultimately, the Buddha's void embodies paradox at every turn. It is empty, yet not, static, yet changing, indifferent, yet meaningful. It is measured by science, yet saturated with metaphor. It humbles pride, yet elevates imagination. Its very contradictions ensure it never exhausts contemplation. To encounter it is to practice holding opposites without collapse. The Buddha's void is as more than a feature of universe. It is a training ground for mind and spirit. In facing it, we rehearse awe, humility, surrender, imagination. It teaches without speaking, fills without filling, guides without path. Across 330 million light-years of near-nothing, it delivers everything. The lesson that emptiness is not void but presence, not absence but mirror. To stand before the Buddha's void in thought is to practice humility. It shows us that human scale, human importance, human drama, all of it is minuscule compared to cosmic architecture. Yet instead of despair, this realization can offer relief. If the void can stretch 330 million light years and still exist in silence, then our troubles are not ultimate, they shrink to proportion. Humility becomes freedom. The void releases us from the illusion that we must be large, central, or permanent. Instead, we can be fleeting, local, temporary, and still meaningful. The Buddha's void is thus liberation disguised as emptiness, teaching us to release the burden of cosmic self-importance. When we imagine traveling into the void, the journey becomes allegory. Each light year passed is another layer of detachment from noise and crowd. At first, galaxies thin, constellations distort, familiar anchors fade. Then, across millions of years, darkness deepens. The further in you drift, the more silence presses. Yet within this silence lies clarity. The void strips away distraction until only essentials remain: existence, awareness, persist. The voyage into the Buddha's void is thus like an inner voyage, leaving behind clutter, entering stillness, facing oneself. Its scale externalizes what meditation internalizes. To imagine entering it is to imagine entering silence beyond silence. Some cosmologists speculate that voids may help resolve tensions in current models. Observations of cosmic expansion sometimes disagree slightly with predictions. One possibility is that voids influence these measurements more than expected. If so, emptiness may hold the key to refining our models of everything. The Buddha's void, then, is not just emptiness, but evidence. By mapping it, timing its growth, modeling its expansion, we sharpen cosmology. Paradoxically, absence provides data. The Buddha's void is testimony that even what is missing can inform. Science does not need only what is present. It also needs what is not. The Buddha's void also demonstrates endurance. It has persisted for billions of years, carved by gravity and expansion, holding form as galaxies evolved. Civilizations rise and fall on Earth in fractions of its lifespan. Stars are born and die, and still the void endures. To contemplate it is to realize the brevity of human history. Yet this brevity does not diminish us. It sharpens intensity. Knowing time is short, we live more vividly. The void's endurance thus contrasts with our transience. But in contrast, it gives meaning. Against its immensity, our days glow brighter. Philosophers once argued about the reality of nothingness. Some denied it could exist. Others claimed it was the foundation of existence. The Buddha's void provides a modern stage for this debate. It is close to nothing, yet not. It is emptiness, but filled with subtle fields, sparse galaxies, hidden energy. It is not pure absence, but not fullness either. In contemplating it, we enact the ancient debate anew. Nothingness exists, but only imperfectly. The void demonstrates that absence in reality is never absolute. It is always tinged, always mixed, always paradoxical. Emotionally, the void can be experienced as a mirror of mortality. Just as life arises for a time and fades back into silence, galaxies shine briefly against backdrop of emptiness. The Buddha's void amplifies this image. Galaxies within it are rare lights in sea of dark, like sparks in vast night. They glow, then dim, then vanish. Our own lives mirror this pattern at smaller scale. We flare, we fade, we return to silence. The void becomes metaphor for life's arc, short brilliance against immensity. Yet instead of despair, this can inspire gratitude. The very brevity makes light precious. Future astronomers, billions of years from now, may not even know the void as we do. As galaxies recede beyond detection, the universe will appear smaller to them. The cosmic web will dissolve into local clusters, and the Buddhist void may vanish from awareness. Knowledge of it belongs to this era, when light still bridges distance. We live in privileged time, late enough to measure voids, early enough to see them. This fleeting window heightens meaning. The void itself will endure. But awareness of it may not. To know the Buddha's void now is gift of cosmic timing. For artists, the void is an inexhaustible symbol. It stands for absence, silence, exile, humility, transcendence. Painters imagine it as black circle surrounded by light. Writers describe it as abyss, gulf, cathedral of silence. Musicians echo it in pauses, in rests longer than notes. The Buddhist void inspires across disciplines because it resonates with archetypes older than science. It is blankness pregnant with meaning. By existing, it becomes palette for imagination. The void proves that inspiration does not require content. Sometimes the absence of content is itself muse. In contemplating the Buddha's void, one begins to see it not as exception, but as rule. Most of the universe is empty, matter is rare, stars rarer still, life rarer again. The void is not anomaly but background, not exception but majority. To face this is to shift worldview. We do not live in universe of fullness punctuated by gaps. We live in universe of emptiness punctuated by sparks. The Buddha's void merely dramatizes this truth. It magnifies the silence that is everywhere. The cosmos is mostly nothing, and that nothing gives context to everything, and so we return to silence. The Buddha's void, vast gulf and constellation of Buddhas, remains one of the largest known voids in the universe. It is emptiness that teaches presence, silence that generates wonder, absence that becomes mirror. Across 100 reflections, it has revealed paradox after paradox. Nothing that is something, emptiness that shapes fullness, isolation that generates meaning. To contemplate it is to practice awe, humility, surrender, imagination. Its lesson is simple yet inexhaustible. The universe is not only made of what is, but also of what is not. The Buddha's void is the not. Vast beyond words, empty beyond measure, yet in its emptiness it fills